Right, we're live. Over to you, Chair Harrington.
Okay, we're reconvening in our work session. And before we go to our next agenda item, we only have 2 more for the rest of the day. Ms. Angie's asked for a moment.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners, for the additional time. I was not ready to share this this morning, but I am now pleased to share, and this information is now in your inbox, that Jennifer Kearley has been appointed as the Director of Juvenile Services after a national search.
Great hire, Ms. Angie.
Congratulations,
Is
Jennifer.
there a question in there? It's like, that's so long, but we won't do that. Okay.
Process is important. And I just, in your inbox, it outlines Jennifer's contributions as well as her rich working history. So as you know, Jennifer, I won't spend time reading that, but please feel free to send your congratulations to her. I'm so grateful for her leadership, especially over this, well, her entire tenure. This last year, some things that really stand out to me. She is a human-centered leader and truly cares about the community we serve. And it's not just the juveniles, it's the parents, it's the full family, and also her staff, and taking the care just for the community and seeing staff as part of that community, and really believing that we do have leaders at all levels, inside and out. And so just really appreciative for her continuing to have her steadfast leadership, and also improving, from my accounts, the culture of the department.
I'm really pleased that you've been able to go through the hiring process and determined that Jennifer Kearley is the right fit to lead the organization moving forward. I think she's well thought of in the industry of juvenile justice, not only here in Oregon, but beyond, and has all of the leadership and partnership qualities that you just summarized so very well. So it's, wow. It's shaping young lives is takes a different skill set than shaping adult lives, and helping people get their adult behavior back on track, reducing recidivism of adults. So none of that is easy work. But working with juveniles and juvenile justice is just a whole different skill set. That's terrific. Well, thank you for that good news. Next, we're going to move on to the 2025 state legislative session update. So please take it away, Ms. Doyle.
Thank you. And I fortunately have a bunch of slides, so while the rest of the team comes online. Good afternoon, board. This is yet again another legislative update. We are hitting some session marks of halfway through. Yes. So you have your entire GR team here with you today. So we'll go through our legislative updates and then next steps. And of course, our undying question of you is what further information you have as we go through this. I think this time we will be doing a little bit more than that. We have the letter that's in your packet for the capital construction process. Happy to take that up a little bit later in the presentation when we talk about budget next steps. And then the information that was shared and noted this morning about the Republican counter proposal to the transportation package, that's part of today's presentation. So we look forward to those comments and feedback. So first, as was acknowledged this morning, thank you for your attendance and hard work at the Day Capitol. Yes, we have a fantastic picture taker of, I believe Maida took this picture because she takes all the pictures. I'm glad we made you come outside, even though you can see the Capitol's under construction. I'd just like to highlight that you did meet with 20 legislative offices between the 5 of you. They were bipartisan visits. You met with both bipartisan leadership, but also bipartisan representation of Washington County. We do have a bipartisan delegation, and we appreciate that time that you took with them. We did receive a bunch of commitments to sign on to the letters of support for the courthouse, Scoggins, and fairgrounds. But I'd also like to extend an extra special thank you to the staff assistance team because GR could not have done all of that work without that part of our team helping us from making sure that we made packets that made sense for all of you, making sure it was all scheduled. So a huge thank you on behalf of the GR managers to Bryn, Grace, and Maida for their support in making sure that A, we got you down there correctly, and then B, didn't lose any of you while in the Capitol.
We were hard to track.
It took 6 of us to wrangle 5 of you. So, I'll just give you this summary of where we are, and we'll go over this again in the next steps, but we are halfway through the legislative session. Things are moving faster. A lot of bills are no longer under consideration, but that doesn't mean that there aren't a lot of bills still under consideration. We are moving towards that budget conversation with the state revenue forecast occurring on the 14th, which is next Wednesday, which sets their high water mark for what they can budget to. And that's when the budget conversations will become very intentional. So we're at just over half of the bills still under consideration. So it's a great session. The GR team continues to work very hard to track as much as we can. So getting into those legislative updates, Senate Bill 916 remains alive and under consideration. As I updated your board on Friday, we continue to be opposed to this bill as a county because of the ongoing concerns we have, not just of what it might cost to pay into that unemployment benefit and possible back pay, but also because as we go through our collective bargaining agreements, right now we've been lucky enough to have non-strike provisions in all of them. So not just those that are legislatively precluded from striking, but also those that are not. We have reached collective bargaining agreements. However, those are renewed every 3 years, I believe is the normal term for them. Yeah. So we can face challenges there, and a number of those groups do some very critical work for the county, and we cannot go without services if they choose to go onto strike. We will have to fill those positions with people. So it continues to have a potential of cost to us. And therefore, the simple solution that we have consistently throughout the session asked for is to remove public agencies from consideration for this bill. That has not happened. And therefore, we cannot be anything but opposed to that bill at this time as Washington County.
Is everybody clear on that? Nobody's speaking up, so the answer must be yes.
Well, yeah, on that point, I want to speak to this slide, but it doesn't have to be yet.
We're
there.
We're here.
I guess I was surprised by some information I learned as I was trying to advocate for our opposition to this bill. And I'm concerned that I was surprised as I was doing that advocacy that a number of legislators shared with me that we are apparently not in full lockstep as a commission on this, which was surprising to me, especially given I thought the agreements that we had around this. And so I just want to, maybe that's why you have the part about clarifying our position remains opposed. Mm-hmm. But I'm just concerned about that. And I did give Commissioner Fye a heads up that I was concerned about this earlier today.
Okay, so just for clarification, you're saying that in talking to the legislators, they were saying we as a commission were not unified in that position?
Well, I was advocating that I thought we were, and that was.
We have a majority position of opposition.
I thought we had a unanimous one, but I learned through this process that we didn't, and I would prefer, I guess, in the future to learn that before I'm speaking and advocating.
Well, in addition, even if it's not unanimous, when being asked about the Washington County position, we are each obligated to represent the Washington County position and not undermine that position.
Especially when we're functioning as a unit. in the legislature. So the second part is then, where are our legislators on this? Because I think we need to start putting more pressure on them. So talk to me.
The delegation is of mixed opinion. We are getting a sense of who is concerned, shares our concerns on Senate Bill 916. Right now, we are using Gwen Baldwin, who is on contract with us to pick up some of the capacity that we needed with the leaves that we have. Her outreach right now is to specific offices, representatives that have been have not spoken out clearly. So doing a lot of outreach to figure out where all of our delegation is. Some are very much supportive of this bill. Others aren't sure yet how they feel about it. There are concerns for local governments. There are concerns for school districts. And we are trying to get the lay of the land and give them our information as to what we believe our impacts will be while we do that. So I can't give clarity to that question, but I think the majority have indicated support in some fashion, but not all.
I'm a little confused. Do we need to change our unanimous position?
Why would we do that?
Well, that's what I thought I heard.
Well, we
No.
were unanimous in adopting our agenda and our positions previously. We've taken no action to change that.
And we shouldn't take, we're still going to oppose 916 for the way it is.
I think it's just a lot more complicated to do that one. Not all. Yeah, when we all haven't taken the same position and when we're saying things like,
No, we
we're
did
all
take a
opposed.
position.
I
We
understand
just
that.
haven't ever had reason to believe until it being discussed in this public meeting that we were all not, that the situation changed from unanimous.
So I'm assuming that you're the one that's the outlier on this. So talk to us, okay?
Sure, I'll talk to you. I shared my perspective in a letter as someone with both the union experience and deep understanding of our local budget challenge. And my goal was to add nuance to complex issue that affects many in our community. So I offered my perspective on that bill.
In a letter to whom and when?
A letter to the legislatures.
To all legislators?
So here's as I think the full context is I stated in a letter that I was speaking as an individual and not on behalf of this board. I was careful to include in a disclaimer that I didn't speak for this board, but I'm in support of that bill. And I think it needed a nuanced it's a complex issue. It affects a lot of people, and and frankly, I'm hoping that our board, as a board, with this opportunity, we can have a robust dialogue about perhaps change our position.
Why would we do that when it's going to be significantly detrimental, not only us, but to all the other municipalities and organizations that are going to pay the price when this is done. The only winner in this are the unions. There's no other winners. So why would we change a position? So, and I don't mean to be putting you on the spot. I'm
No.
just saying, there's no damn
Why
way.
we were
unless
all
this
put
thing
on the
really
spot
changes.
without knowing it.
So I guess what I would suggest from my standpoint is I'm more than willing to reach out. I had this conversation with Nathan Sosa, and he was generally pro,
He is on the bill.
but was willing to listen. I'd like to have that. I don't know where Rep. Edwards is or McLean or any of our other representatives around. And so I'd kind of like to know that recap. And I firmly believe we should be talking to these people, and we need specific talking points as to why this is really a bad idea.
So,
I'd love to be paid not to come to work.
I worked with our GR team to address calls that I was getting from multiple unions. And I just caught up with a voicemail either last night or over lunch that said that even if this was going to have a cost to us, the first institution of that, we should be able to cover with reserves, and therefore it's not really an impact, which is so wrong.
I was gonna say, whose reserves are they talking about?
Exactly. So it's a very naive positioning of the impact, the potential impact of this for multiple agreements. And I am not pleased that we've had to learn of this way.
So it was just last week that we were in Salem, right? So we had meetings where SB 916 came up. My meeting with Senator Solomon, it came up. It wasn't on my list of talking points with
Because it had already
well,
been out of the Senate.
but I'm just uncomfortable now with what I talked to Senator Solomon about, in terms of the fact that we were solid as a board, and I'm uncomfortable that there wasn't communication about a change in your position, so that we all have relationships with our legislators, and I'm sure, Jason, it sounds like you were talking to a legislator that said, no,
I felt like I looked stupid in the conversation, to be honest. I mean, that's
It undermines the trust, undermines our whole work group.
but it did not come up during, maybe mine was the only session where it came up, and that's because Senator Solomon is so engaged with 916, I suspect as well.
I'm not aware of it coming up in other meetings, but I wasn't in all 20. Right?
It didn't come up in any of the meetings I had.
When was your letter dated?
I don't remember.
Could you
I'll
send
send
it to us,
yeah.
please?
I'll send it to
Do
you.
us that.
Yeah, I can send it to you.
So we still have a majority that is opposed to it.
It is the county position that we've been putting.
When's this gonna come to the floor?
It is unclear. They scheduled the public hearing on the 30th, and they have not scheduled it for a work session at the last I checked on it. I will check right now, but it still needs to go through the House committee and that work session vote, and then it would go to the floor. I imagine that they are caucusing on that bill, which each party caucuses on bills, has conversations about what the votes will look like. I imagine that's happening this week with the deadline that is on Friday for scheduling a work session. So we'll know more by the end of the week.
So this very first bullet item talks about bill requires that striking or locked out employees are eligible for unemployment benefits for the duration of the dispute, which means that irrespective of our current agreements, for all future agreements, we would be held to that. So it absolutely does have a big impact across our union workforce.
As we move forward.
I tracked this. I don't know, Erin, if you could do a bit of a write-up for us. I've been following the GR reports that come out from the staff. I don't know if you could provide more detail, because this is one bill that, well, one of many bills that I've been really closely tracking. And the statement the chair made isn't true, according to the subject matter experts delivering this bill's content. So I wonder if you could put together one pager objectively what the subject matter experts are saying. Like I even followed and watched the whole Senate floor. This was a bill that was, after becoming informed, like there's a lot of opportunity to actually learn more information and engage and sort of gauge some of the impacts, financial impacts, and the idea that this could be an unfunded mandate has been debunked actually. So I don't want to put you on the spot. Some of the facts that I have and been tracking, but I don't know if you could, for the benefit of the board, to sort of educate that journey.
Commissioner, I will reiterate the plethora of information that we've provided with the details of the bill back into the GR memo on Friday.
And the fact is, the subject matter experts state the same thing that that first bullet has. So the difference is our existing bills our existing agreements have no strike provisions. Those will end, and we will have this to all of our standard. So all of our parole and probation, all of our nurses, all of our jail deputies.
But they're strike barred, those ones.
In the current agreement, which expires soon. That's the difference. That's the part you're not getting.
No, you're not getting, Chair, to be fair. I think
No.
we're just not understanding each other.
I've
We have a different
verified this
perspective.
with our team on what the bill actually says. It requires this.
We can have Aaron.
Not
Wait.
this agreement.
So,
Chair, I think you
so
should
Ms.
pull back.
Ms. Doyle will resend the information, and this is the analysis that GR manager Zakir Khan had put together before he was out on leave. And this is based on an impact analysis to Washington County. We do not look at impact analysis of any other organization. So that's the scope that we've used.
So one last thing, Commissioner Snyder, I just want to say thank you for bringing this up. I
Yes.
appreciate it. And
Highlighting this.
and I believe if there's more information that Commissioner Fye wants to share, that I'd read it, but that doesn't mean that I would agree, but I will read it.
I will too.
Yeah, maybe you'll change your mind.
Highly unlikely, but I trust my staff here.
With that, I will move on to the next slide. I'm going to take the first piece of this. Also, as part of our work on our priorities related to the substance use disorder, Gwen Baldwin has been carrying Senate Bill 610 for us. That bill has been massively amended. It was, as you may recall, originally contained our proposition for how the behavioral health resource network fundings and formulas should be set, making significant changes to the process that would occur. It was what we had proposed. The legislators have taken ownership of it, and now there is a -4 amendment, which has been scheduled for a work session, I believe, on Wednesday, which is tomorrow, if I remember what day of the week it is. That will change it from a process in which the Oversight and Accountability Council will be running it to one that is run through the Oregon Health Authority process, which has a lot more clarity, transparency, and public process attached to it because it's an agency of the state. The Oversight and Accountability Council will continue to exist as an advisory board to OHA, and that will change how the formula is set for burns in the future, as well as the grant process in the future. Once OHA took over the grant appeals process, Washington County was brought into the recipients for the burns for this on the current grant cycle. Nothing in the proposed amendment would change the 25 to 28 grant cycle outcomes. It would be forward moving through the next grant cycle, both creating the formula and then allocating the grants. So it's a step in the right direction. It is not our complete and total solution, but it is a solution that gets to the crux of the process problems. We are hopeful that as it moves out of this joint committee, it goes straight to the Senate floor and then goes straight to the House floor, so it will move quickly once it gets moved out. We have heard that there are some concerns that have been raised by the League of Oregon Cities, but we believe that this is the best bill we could get out of this session, and we will continue to work with them as local government partners in making sure that their needs are also considered through these burns processes. But given that counties are the ones providing these types of services and this type of coordination, what we know is what we need for Washington County, and that's why we continue to be supportive of Senate Bill 610. And with that, I will turn it over to Pablo to talk about the deflection portion of substance use disorder opportunities for treatment.
Thanks, Aaron. For the record, Pablo Nieves Valenzuela, Government Relations Manager for the county. I'm going to start with HB 3069. This was a placeholder bill that we have not previously discussed, but Representative Krupp recently filed amendments that make it an omnibus bill focused on CJC's grant processes and it also includes several changes related to deflection. The good news is that this bill would also put the funding formula for deflection under the responsibility of the CJC. Of course, that's something we've been advocating for. The bad news is that it does include several other changes that could have a negative impact on our deflection program, including shifting 75% of available funds to a competitive grant process and creating an incentive for prioritizing really the quantity of program participants over the quality of our engagement with those participants by basically making it so that counties would get more funding based on the number of people they project to serve. Of course, if you don't have sufficient funding, then you're going to provide very limited services to a large number of people in order to get more funding, and we're concerned about that incentive. I also want to note that we're also concerned that this approach may contradict some existing best practices that really prioritize that long-term engagement that we've been using and disrupt the innovation that our local programs have been focused on, where they've been seeking solutions that meet the needs of their communities. And we've been learning through that process from other folks, and folks have been learning from us. And we think that this competitive process might really limit that innovation to a set of practices that we're not sure are the best, right? So we are working with AOC to push back on some of those changes and advocate for a new amendment that addresses our concerns. A hearing was held last week, but no work session is scheduled yet. So more to come on that. Also shifting over to SB 236. This is, of course, that technical fix bill we've been collaborating with folks on that includes language. That includes the language for HB 3009 that would allow the use of JMUD funds in our community corrections center. Just again, to remind folks, that's the jail-based medication for opioid use disorder grant program. And it also, of course, requires the CJC to create that new formula for deflection. Since HB 3069 is becoming the deflection formula bill, we might not need this as a vehicle for the formula, but we still do want that technical fix related to JMUD. So it's important that that moves forward. I just checked in with folks today, and the stakeholders are working out some final language related to how pharmacists use medication-assisted treatment, how they dispense it. And so we expect to get a work session for the bill scheduled soon. That is it is a committee bill that was introduced at the direction of the co-chairs. So we expect that it will move forward and be scheduled for a work session shortly. And HB 3009, as I just mentioned, that language is in 236, so we don't expect it to move forward as a standalone bill at this point. Next slide, please. Great. So on public safety and justice, there was one bill I just wanted to note for you all that we haven't discussed previously, but we have been tracking closely, and that's SB 97. So for the first time since the 1970s, this bill would increase the maximum allowable fee that counties can charge for providing marriage licenses and registrations of domestic partnerships. That's important for the county because those fees are used to fund our mediation and conciliation program. And the original bill would have indexed that fee to inflation, but an amendment was needed to win support in the Senate. So a hard cap of $35 was put into that bill, but that is a notable increase from the current $10 cap on those fees. So we do really appreciate that as an opportunity to increase funding for our mediation and conciliation program. The bill, it passed out of the Senate, and it's scheduled for a work session in the House Judiciary Committee later this afternoon. So we will be sure to keep you all updated on that. Next slide, please. So, HB 3518, this is, of course, the bill that would modernize the mechanism for providing state funding to support county assessment and taxation operations. That bill is still being considered by the House Revenue Committee. We have been working closely with AOC and the associations of county assessors and tax collectors to address some of the concerns among local government partners who they are concerned that there's a provision that would allow counties to retain 0.3% of the revenue we collect on their behalf, and that funding would go to support county A&T departments. And they're concerned that they're not going to get a return on investment for that. And we have been having some success in demonstrating that ROI for local government partners, so they can understand that by putting some skin in the game here and keeping us well funded, they can expect to continue to have the resources that they are due, and by us being able to actually collect that tax revenue that they rely on and not missing out on revenue that could be supporting their activities. So at this point in the process, it may be helpful for commissioners to reach out to fellow elected officials, particularly in Hillsborough and Beaverton, to help them understand the importance of passing that bill and earning their support. And so, of course, I'd be happy to work with any of you if you're interested in doing that. But with that, I will pass it over to Carly.
Thank you so much, Pablo. Good afternoon, commissioners. For the record, my name is Carly Silva Gabrielson, one of the county's government relations managers. And I am going to cover just an update on the transportation package work, which is that the soon-to-be released transportation package is on the horizon. Work in the committee continues. And we recently saw the committee's draft framework, the Oregon Transportation Reinvestment Package, or TRIP 2025, released, which outlines several new revenue mechanisms to fund our statewide transportation system. While significant details have yet to be released, the framework would generate an additional $1.9 billion per biennium, with $1.7 billion going to the State Highway Trust Fund, which then is distributed to counties and cities and ODOT with a 50-30-20 split. Next slide, please. Last week, we saw the Oregon House Republicans release their counter-proposal framework, which outlines $730 million in refocused spending, cost savings, and spending cuts, as outlined on this slide. Chair Harrington, given these two competing proposals, I'd like to ask the board for a discussion, if you concur.
I believe that there was a desire to talk about the Republican counterproposal just to make sure that we were all maintaining our same principles related to making sure that we see transit and the state highway trust funds and an opportunity to answer any questions, given that we had added the Republican proposal information into the package at the last minute. So Commissioner Milley, I know you had originally had some questions. I was curious if you wanted to bring that to your commissioner.
Certainly, I can speak to this if everybody's okay with that. The information that was sent out, I believe yesterday, is that 8-page or whatever it is, but it also outlines the estimated savings that they're talking about up here. And so I have asked Stephen and Jessica to tell me what ODOT's mandated programs are, so that many of these are programs that are legislatively mandated, so it's not like we can get rid of them, but you could probably shave them down a little bit. What does all of that look like? I guess what Jason and I heard from Representative Drazen was that they believe ODOT needs to be fixed before you fund them with a couple $2 billion every year, and that if you don't fix ODOT, then you're just pouring good money after bad. So there's a lot between these two proposals, and certainly in that conversation. And I guess I was not necessarily asking for dialogue from the standpoint of, what do you think? Although that'd be okay with me, because there's still a lot of work to be done on this. I think it's a little bit of, I'm hoping, since we're hoping for a bipartisan package at the conclusion of this, that there is some give and take on both sides of this, and we can find some happy ground. I guess when you talk about the second item on their list is to reallocate vacancies, and they have $68 million of vacancies. That's pretty significant number of folks, I would guess. And so, what does that look like? So there's some things on here that are, I think, kind of interesting for further discussion, and that's the only reason I tossed it out there.
So, I would prefer, rather than spending time understanding what the Republicans' transportation proposal is written in its entirety, I would like us to go back to the board principles and priorities. We did want to maintain 50-30-20. We did want a multimodal, remember the word multimodal being in there. So no funding for transit, rail, bike, ped doesn't exactly support our board priorities and principles. I don't have a problem. I think it's fine that the Oregon House Republicans have put a proposal out there, but I don't want us to have to debate our own priorities and principles. We did the work to develop that. And so if it doesn't meet it, with our limited time today, I'm inclined to say, no, I don't support it because of these specific things right in our own adopted principles and priorities.
And that would apply to the other proposal too. I mean, we've got our priorities already established.
Yep. I also want to make sure that as a driver of an electric vehicle, right, I have one fossil fuel gas powered one and one electric vehicle, I would very much like to pay my fair share in it.
I don't think you're going to have to worry about that.
So,
I think
well, I
that's
can't,
going to make the cut.
I can't tell that it's in the House Republicans' proposal with no new taxes.
Well, these are programs that I think the messaging is that ODOT has gotten expanded responsibilities, both from legislature and from whatever else. And all of these are programs that they currently fund. And are they programs that maybe should be evaluated if they are not legislatively mandated? So again, you kind of throw everything out and you say, let's start over again. Well, you're not going to do that, but let's find some middle. And
But I agree with you that the legislature has a lot of work to do moving forward on transportation. I don't think that begs the question of, does that change our position? No, I think we have our factors already enumerated. I do appreciate the summary being brought forward to us.
Rep. Drazen's other, I think, important comment that we should just be aware of is that and I think this is a reasonable critique, I think the feeling that there's just so much authority that the legislature has delegated to the OTC specifically, that the feeling is that there's just not enough accountability at that level either, not just ODOT itself, but the structure of the OTC and how much the legislature's delegated control.
I'd just like to also add, thank you. I'd like to add that under the proposed cuts, the first bullet at 306, 307 million is multiples of any of the other bullets, and that's something we do support.
Yeah, that's about 40% of it. We definitely do. We want to preserve this.
Yeah, and so I just wanted to put this into context that I have a hard time getting past that first bullet.
What about the state?
Yeah.
Yes.
307 million versus the others.
Yep.
And we support it.
Yep.
400 million.
Well, so we're not going to be writing a Washington County transportation reinvestment package or a Washington County transportation proposal. so.
Yeah, I don't think I was asking that, Chair. I was just asking for us to be aware of
Very much.
both
so.
sides of the
Thank
issue.
you. Thank you.
Yes, so I think we've,
We're good.
We're going to continue advocating with our priorities.
yep, thank you.
Thank you, commissioners. I appreciate that feedback and clarification. And one just quick last item from me is that we did receive a request from the coalition that's supporting the Tualatin Valley Highway project to have the board sign a letter of support for the capital construction ask. I'm going to have the letter added to the record, but I would love to take the opportunity to get a thumbs up from the board on signing the letter of support.
Already voted for asking for a full 30 million.
We just like to make sure that you're aware that they're asking for your signature on the letter. For the ask of the state for $50 million.
Oh,
Sorry,
Yeah, they're
context.
needing more.
That we're, as part of the overall package
the
of
overall
funding, there has been a,
solution that
yeah.
we already.
that's
had
what JPAC
presented
was
to
down
us
talking
and all
about,
that
among
jazz.
other things. So we were asking for your board's thumbs up to put your, we'll make sure it gets into the package for that $50 million request. Thumbs up
We
all
got
the way around.
4, Mr. Willie.
I'm just making sure.
I
Okay,
still think it's stiff.
we'll make sure. Well,
I'm thinking 50 million. That sounds pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was that much that first time.
With that, I think we will move to the next slide and Clean Water Services.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Harrington and Board of Directors for Clean Water Services. For the record, I'm Tracy Rainey, Government Relations Manager for Clean Water Services. And I appreciate the opportunity to provide a quick update on some of the key issues that we've been working on recently. We have continued to be very engaged in various housing policy conversations due to potential impacts on infrastructure planning, as well as potential impacts for our water quality permits. A few bills I do want to highlight for you. Senate Bill 974 has already passed the Senate. It is now in the House Housing Committee and had a public hearing yesterday. The bill was very problematic as introduced on the Senate side. And really that was in terms of potential impacts to the infrastructure design and approval process, just from the perspective of potential impacts for clean water services. We worked to amend the bill on the Senate side, and there were some improvements to the language that were made. However, the bill still does have some issues. There's continued work happening in the House to further refine and clarify the language. I am semi-optimistic that there'll be some improvements. I don't think this will end up being a perfect bill by any means. The bill does have another public hearing that is scheduled next week, so we'll continue that work. House Bill 2658 was introduced to address a specific issue that happened in a city, and it is intended to ensure that local governments do not charge someone else for improvements that a public agency was already planning to complete. The language in the bill, however, is very broad, and we've been working to flag our concerns as we believe it could have unintended consequences for infrastructure projects that may be listed in capital improvement plans or where SDC funds may be utilized to pay for a portion of a project. We're reviewing a proposed amendment to the bill now and trying to determine if that language adequately addresses our concerns. The final bill that I'll mention, House Bill 2138, is the Governor's Middle Housing and Land Division Bill. We worked extensively with the Governor's Office and DLCD on the language. We feel the bill is workable at this point. It is in Ways and Means Committee currently, but we wanted to flag that it does have language that would require the Land Conservation and Development Commission to engage in rulemaking during the interim. And that could have impacts on how we plan for infrastructure, including stormwater improvements that are required for water quality permit compliance. So we will be continuing to work on this through the interim and through that rulemaking process. On the last bill, I do get questions.
Hang on 1 second. I just want to observe that middle housing, kind of like prior topics, it's the gift that keeps on giving. You know, we did a lot of work a couple of years back on enabling middle housing, and we're back at it again. That's all.
I could not agree more. It feels a little like Groundhog Day talking about the bill again. So yes, appreciate that. I'll just mention quickly on House Bill 3031, because we do get questions sometimes. This is some funding around housing infrastructure, but is specific to more particular for site specific, I guess, infrastructure improvements. So we don't see that it addresses the capacity challenges that we would see where those funds would be particularly useful for water utilities, for example. So we are neutral on the bill. We don't have any issues with the bill. We just don't see that it will be particularly helpful for some of the capacity issues that we see that are important for housing production as well. There are two bills that I do want to mention that have funding requests attached to them. They are House Bill 2169 to fund the continuation of a reuse coordinator position at DEQ, and House Bill 2168, which would provide continued funding for the septic loan program. We are working with coalitions to advocate for these bills through the Ways and Means process. We've also been working with the Oregon Association of Clean Water Agencies to advocate for key investments contained in DEQ's proposed water quality budget. With that, I'm happy to take any questions, provide additional details, or otherwise I think I will hand it back over to Erin.
Can you remind me, sorry, this is Catherine, why we have a vested interest in continuing to have a loan program for septic systems?
Yes, that program has been around since I think 2015 or 2016. And has been really important, especially for low-income Oregonians that have failing septic systems. DEQ will not provide a permit to repair or replace those systems if they are within a certain proximity of a public sewer. And it really does become a financial challenge for homeowners who are in that situation and have a failing septic system. So we want them to go get help to connect over to a sewer system. So
it's not really a septic loan funding bill. It's a septic to connect loan funding program. That's what I was responding to.
It is, yeah, a great observation. It is both of
We're not
those.
subsidizing the septic program.
Yeah, that's why I was being skeptical and why that's in our best interest. So
Call it the sewer loan funding.
it's about
Getting there.
connecting.
Yeah. Thank you for, yes, highlighting that. It is, yes, both of those pieces.
Great updates, but the work keeps going.
And speaking of the work, continues to go. In your packet is a letter that I would like to have each of your signatures affixed to. We were anticipating that capital construction would be scheduling the lottery funding bill sometime in the future. And then after we looked at what the future was, we realized we needed you to approve that letter today. So I'm looking for a thumbs up to affix each of your signatures to that letter. I'm seeing, that seems three. It's in your packet.
We trust you, Erin.
These are the same talking points we were advocating for the legislature.
Yes, it's on those three lottery asks. That hearing is now officially scheduled for the 9th. We were going to hopefully have one of you testify, but you have other requirements. You have a budget meeting all day that day. So we were finding an alternate to speak on behalf of the county at this time. That 9th is also the last day to schedule the second chamber work sessions, and then the revenue forecast on the 14th. Second chamber work sessions have to be held by the 23rd. That 9th and 23rd deadlines are also important for the joint committees. They really need to get their bills moving during that as well, other than rules and finance committees and ways and means. Those deadlines apply to everyone else. And then we will be back with your board on the 27th to tell you what all further trouble we've gotten you into.
And just a brief summary. I know you'll cover the state revenue forecast in your GR weekly, but it would be helpful on the 27th just to see if we have, reinforced the key messages from that and see if we have any questions with regard to that forecast.
Yeah, and on the 27th, we plan to come back to the much more budget heavy conversation with your board as well, but we'll make sure that we provide that sort of information and context.
Yeah, that's great. I just wanted to give you a heads up.
Nope, that's great. And with that, I assume you have
team, go. Keep going. You're great advocates for us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Money.
Yes, we will find your monies.
Bring the dough.
And on that, speaking of finding the monies, I do want to just lift up once again, Pablo had mentioned in the presentation, if any of you would be willing to contact legislatures on the county assessment function and funding for that function. So just get those, if you're willing to.
As well as our city
I would be
partners.
willing to accept assignments, like.
Okay.
Me too.
Call this
Too.
person, tell them this, I'm all in.
And
Ditto.
I just want to underscore this, the state funding does not fully fund our county assessment function. So I just want to remind us of that.
Yes. So, Pablo, I also heard you say something about City of Hillsborough and City of Beaverton. What are you asking us to do with regard to getting them to understand the real facts?
Thank you for the question, Chair Harrington. So we have been holding meetings with technical staff between, our A&T staff and city finance staff to better understand the return on investment. But I think it would be helpful for you to reach out to folks on city council or mayors of the cities of Hillsborough and Beaverton, asking them for support and offering to provide technical information about why it's important for other jurisdictions like theirs to support this bill. So I'm happy
just,
to work.
Just
Yeah,
put that summary together in an email.
sure.
So that we have it and can deliver the messages.
And I think you
Sounds
guys
good.
should just coordinate a signing let's get this organized and run it like you did the visit to the legislature.
Can
Be
do.
strategic, 1 or 2 calls per person.
Happy to. Thank you all.
Great. Thank you very much, Ledge team.
Everyone.
We're going to move on to our last and final topic for the day, and that is the fiscal year 26 proposed Washington County fee schedule. Welcome.
Long day for meetings for you all.
But they're all fun meetings.
They're fun. This is
Yeah,
the most
yeah.
fun.
These are numbers. Jerry
Right.
loves numbers.
I like the last, I heard a lot about money.
Yeah.
Mm.
Steven's already got his name in for the first dibs on that money, on that transportation.
Okay.
So yeah, sorry, John. You missed a meeting or something.
All right. Chair, board, I'm John Steyer. I'm the interim chief financial officer. I'm joined here by Chris Weber, who is the lead for working the fee schedule and also budget analyst in the finance division. So excited to talk a little about fees. There's a lot of detail in our slides. I apologize for that.
Okay.
We did put together a 2-page summary in the packet that kind of provides some highlights. And we also have the fee schedule that's highlighted, color coded for what's changed and what's different. So then a cleaned up copy of what the public will see when it's published. I'm gonna just get an overview of the fee schedule process. I'll highlight and then I'll hand it off to the expert to talk about some changes and then talk about next steps. You may be aware, and maybe Commissioner Schneider, you may not, as we just coming on as far as our fee schedule review process. We start in November, provide some budget planning worksheets to the departments, and also some training on what information we want back and how they're supposed to fill out templates. And they submit their recommendation to us by the end of January, which allows them to include any fee estimates in their budgets. It also gives us some time to review those and ask questions and make sure we understand where they get their figures. And so the meeting today is our touch point with you before going to the approval of the fee schedule on 17 June with the budget.
John, if I can jump in there, for Commissioner Snyder, if there is what one would consider, I'll just call it more like of a significant fee increase, many times staff will have came and presented to your board prior to this coming. So those more out of the routine, you would have a heads up typically before this process.
Thank you. So for the fee analysis, we do ask the departments to review about 20%. So once every 5 years, they get touch point, but as they know fees in their areas costs go up, they can certainly adjust annually to work toward full cost recovery where it's possible The departments, they complete their templates. If there's an increase more than the Consumer Price Index West region, we ask them to provide more justification.
Which was 2.8% this year.
Correct. And then also we encourage them to compare with the neighboring counties on their costs. There are 1,318 fees that we have in our portfolio. This reflects the numbers in by department, with the land use and transportation and public health with the largest numbers of fees. And then of those fees, about 50% were adjusted this year. And so that's a good bit of work looking at those. Came from various departments, so not just by single departments. And the overall fee revenues that we receive are about 2% of our total resources. So a small amount, but every little bit helps fund our program. So with that intro, I'm going to pass the baton to Chris. Some details.
Can I
Yes,
just 52 new fees?
correct.
Well,
Some that we have decided need to be removed. They're obsolete or no longer needed, or a service provided elsewhere. We don't provide that service. So yes.
well, I guess I wouldn't call some of that new. I'd call it replacement. But I'm just talking about the messaging here. 674 fee changes. 665 of them are increases. 52 of them are new.
The use
I
of
don't
the
know.
word new there, does that mean that was not something we did before that we didn't charge for? What is that
So
conveying?
if you look at the 2-pager, I think it's actually pretty straightforward. For example, under land use and transportation building services, there are 7 new other hourly fees added related to pre-submittal meeting or consultations. Under current planning, there's some new fees on advanced planning, code compliance fee, development review for middle housing types. I think they've done a good job of enumerating these. Under parks for special use fees. There's a new late payment fee for payments 30 days or more that are past due. On facilities division, there's a new conference use fee, permit of entry fee, a state court attorney access request fee, a ground use fee. You know, those all make sense to me.
Makes sense if you read it. If you don't get past this
The
new fee.
slide and the presentation
Right.
are where I think that
Yep. And so if you want to dig down to the details, then you have a good point, Chair. But the whole public's going to read that and say, "Wow."
So I think we can work on clarifying
Mhm.
that. I think this also does align to our board's principles and priorities as the guiding document. One of the things as our staff, even though the guidelines as a basis is to review fees at as Mr. Steyer had outlined, 20% per year. We have to look at all of our revenues and expenditures given our fiscal state. So the 50% coming forward to your board is a reflection of that 50% of our fees were reviewed this year is a reflection that we've had to turn over all of the rocks. And the reason we don't do all of our fees on an annual basis is because some fees are more complicated and to actually do the fee analysis on an annual basis. But we can work on clarifying that 52 new fees bullet point on what that means.
Well, I'm certainly summarizing. So, Chair, I appreciate you pointing out the details in our summary sheet. And going forward, looking next year, how can we add more detail, or even this year, more detail that you would like to have us enumerate out? Chris has a number of slides that go into details on each department, getting the highlights.
Okay, so apologize for all the detail here. This is just, everything that comes after this is a much more detailed version of what is on the two-pager. So I'll just start with the departmental highlights, proposed changes for general government. All the 22 fees that fit in under, that are for all departments for the administrative office, no changes for any of those. A&T has 74 total fees, 12 change. They're all small increases under the CPI West 2.8%. And the largest dollar changes are $4 for a couple of these. So not very many small changes. County Council is changing one of two fees. The public records request or discovery fee for legal staff per hour increases from $263 to $272 for their internal calculation. And elections is removing 4 fees. 3 of them are election map fees that they've deleted because cartography provides the maps.
They're just essentially not doing that anymore.
Right.
Oops,
So
I
not
got
many,
too fast on the click.
so not many changes in general government. Moving on to Health and Human Services, Disability, Aging, and Veteran Services has 5 total fees, introducing 2 new ones and changing 1. So the new fees are for options counseling per hour. The fee is $74.88, set for full recovery of staff time. And there's a new Medicare fee for service variable fee that's added, resulting from changes made to the physician fee schedule by the federal government that allow services charged by area agencies on aging to be reimbursed. Also, the private case management fee per hour increases from $76.71 to $82.61, which is 8% increase for full cost recovery. Moving on to emergency medical, 14 of 23 fees change, all increase. There are 3.6% CPI West all urban increases to all wheelchair provider, ambulance provider, and air ambulance provider license fees, 8 of those. The replacement license fee increases to $52 from $35. The license amendment fee increases to $46 from $35 to achieve full cost recovery. The medical direction fee per hour increases to $220 from $187 per the contract for that. And the fee for the CPR and AED training class up to 10 students increases from $600 to $667 for full cost recovery.
Generally, who does this impact?
EMS,
The last one, you mean?
No, the emergency medical,
EMS provider,
all of that.
air, ground, ambulance.
So not particularly individuals anywhere in that.
Thanks. I don't think I guess I should speak. In the past, Washington County didn't have a separate licensing for individual EMS providers. Maybe they do now, but I believe this is for ambulances.
Okay. Those are well above the 2.8.
Yeah. Moving on to public health, 253 total fees, 171 change or increase, adding 1 new fee. So community health, no changes to 44 fees. Environmental health is changing 171 of 208 fees. And you can see there 10% across the board. Full cost recovery increases for 67 of 83 restaurant licensing fees. 5% across the board increases for 22 of 34 other food licensing fees, which is schools, childcare facilities, and jails. 21% across the board full cost recovery increases for 32 of 38 pool and tourist facilities fees, and a 10% across the board increase for 50 of 53 subsurface fees, which is not full cost recovery, it's on the road to full cost recovery.
Can I ask a question here? What's coming to my mind, I'm in full support of our move to full cost recovery for support that. I just want to know, when I look at these, I'm thinking of the impact on our small business network across the county. And I just want us to, I don't know that there's a slide here that tells me what the impact has been on small and medium-sized businesses.
Or what those fees are.
I see restaurants there, and that's small business
No, I'm
generally.
talking about what is the fee?
What's the
10%?
10% of
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, 10% of what?
We provide the public health certification for all food institutions, including restaurants.
I'm just asking what the fee is.
So what, oh, it's in the table?
Oh, it's down below with all the highlighted things?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I didn't get that far.
There's also a new public health strategy fee set at $402.50. Full cost recovery fee to recover the costs of staff time and supplies to educate, provide inspections, and enforce Ordinance 878, which prohibits the sale of flavored tobacco and synthetic nicotine, prohibits price promotions and coupons. Slide 3 for Health and Human Services highlights Animal Services is increasing 55 of 66 fees. Their last fee increase was 2 years ago. Personnel expenses increased 13% for them since then. Their total costs cannot be reasonably covered by fees. This is not full cost recovery. And their proposal keeps fees reasonable and similar to or less than comparable costs in the private sector. As a summary, 46 of 53 licensed, admitting, impound, service call pickup, euthanasia, deceased animal, and miscellaneous fees increased from 5 to 133%. Dollar amounts, those are $1 to $31. 5 of 8 adoption fees increased $25 to $50. Adoption fees in the metro area have increased substantially to cover the related increases in veterinary spay neuter. And even with the proposed increases, adoption fees are less than comparable private entities. And also 4 of 5 normal boarding per day fees increased $3 to $6 per day. And boarding costs in the private sector have also increased significantly. Moving on to departmental highlights for land use and transportation. All land use and transportation divisions in total have 574 total fees and 335 fee changes, which is 58%. All of the land use and transportation divisions have new public records request fees, $25 for administration and other staff time at costs. And then the community, moving on to the actual divisions themselves, community and transportation planning, road fund engineering, and operations have no changes proposed. County surveyor is increasing 1 fee. The public land corner fee increases from $5 to $10 to help cover expenses to maintain public land corner survey monuments. And all other counties are charging $10 currently. So consistent with prior board direction, most fees for building service, and back in January, most fees for building services and development review current planning increased to maintain full cost recovery, maintain minimal staffing needed to consistently meet service level timeline targets, and avoid large catch-up fee increases. The increase this year is 8.5% based on changes in direct and indirect program costs. And as a reminder, this follows a 50% one-time catch-up increase on most fees back in 23-24 and a similar 8.5% increase this year, 24-25. And that affects a lot of fees, and we'll see those on the next slide. The technology fee is not proposed at this time. So under the building services slide, 171 total fees. Most of them, 146 fees, increase 8.5%, as we spoke about on the previous slide. There are 7 new hourly fees added for pre-submittal or consultation meetings. They're all set at $229 an hour. And you can see the 7 areas that they're for: electrical, life safety, mechanical, permitting, plumbing, site development, grading, and structural meetings. And there are 2 new surcharges added to building permits for new residential, new commercial addition and alteration. The advanced planning surcharge is 0.08% of building valuation to help offset the 17% general fund subsidy reduction for community planning. And the code compliance surcharge is 0.008% of building valuation to help offset general fund subsidy removal for land use code compliance in the development review current planning work group. Our last slide for LUT, development review current planning have 263 total fees. Most fees are increasing 8.5%. We saw on 2 slides previous, 188. There are a couple increases exceeding 8.5%. There's a farm stand in farm use. Fee increases from $11.1550 to $25.99 for full cost recovery. And there are 3 current development review final approval type 1 fees that increase to $390 to improve cost recovery.
What's a farm stand?
Little booth.
Yeah, well, that's,
Yep.
is it a, it's where they sell pumpkins or whatever? And they have to have
Permit?
a permit, and it's going from, okay.
It's a big increase.
A lot of pumpkins.
Also, there are new fees. There's a development review for middle housing type 2, $1,965. And excuse me, rural marijuana production application type 1, urban marijuana facility application type 2, and urban marijuana production application type 1 and 2. Type 1 set at $1,387, type 2 at $4,670. So new fees. And there are 3 application surcharges removed.
And again, is that covering the cost to approve those? It's not a source of revenue, Reestrip. Okay.
Moving on to culture, education, and recreation, West Side Commons, 64 of 77 fees increased by 8%. This is across the board increase due to personnel, utilities, and cost allocation plan increases. This is not full cost recovery. An 8% increase does not provide full cost recovery for renting wingspan in the fairgrounds. Gets us a little closer.
How are we funding this then, since it's an enterprise? Is this using reserves that they have? Okay.
We're using
Fund
reserve.
balance.
Yeah, as a reminder, staff will be coming back to your board with a fund operation and capital funding proposals later this year, as listed out in my goals.
So just listed the largest increases for wingspan, the fairgrounds, and for West Side Commons other fees here. They're all 8% increases, and these are already the largest fees. So you can see that Expo Hall West increases from $32.90 to $35.53, $263 increase. Largest fairgrounds increase is the festival grounds per day fee increases from $19.10 to $2063, $153. And largest increase for other fees is the wingspan conference room triple projector package, increases $156.
So I haven't read this part of the budget yet. So pardon me. If there was to be full cost recovery, do you have any idea what the increases might be?
I will take that as a question. We will put on the question and answer
Terrific.
and get back. And also, I know Ann Ober is here who will be presenting on that portion of the budget.
Our action to review these comes, it's not next Tuesday, is it?
No, you will adopt the fees as part of the formal adoption of the budget.
Great. Thank you.
And we always want to get this to you.
Yeah.
Prior to you going into
Yeah.
your budget committee.
Yeah. No, I'm not doubting that. I'm
No.
trying to catch up.
Chair, I'm also trying to highlight process because we
Yeah.
do have a new
Helps me.
commissioner as well.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
And down at the bottom of this slide, WCCLS, no changes to 3 fees. Moving on to culture, education, and recreation, slide 2, parks has 33 fees. They're making 8 changes, 3 new fees, 3 deleted fees. Starting first with Scoggins Valley Park, Henry Hagg Lake. They're making 5 changes, adding 2 new fees and deleting 3 fees. What's really happening here is that the cancellation fees for the picnic areas are changing. The fee language is changed and clarified. The fee structure changes and allows implementation of consistent cancellation policy between Scoggins Valley, Henry Hagg Lake, and Metzger Park, which is on the next slide. Same cancellation policy for both of them. So the previous cancellation fee of advance notice 30 days or more was $50, changes to 25% of the rental fee. The rental fee is $200 for an uncovered picnic area and $300 for a covered picnic area. The previous cancellation fee advance notice under 30 days, $100, changes to advance notice 8 to 29 days, 50% of the rental fee. And the new part here is there's a new cancellation fee, advance notice under 7 days or less, which is 100% of the rental fee. That is designed to discourage last-minute cancellations, resulting in a loss of revenue and additional staff time processing transactions.
So what we're really saying is there is no cancellation after within 7 days,
Yeah.
You still got it.
Right. Special, you can go back up this. So the special use fees change also. Current application fee is $500, remains $500, but it's made non-refundable. 3 cancellation fee charges for special use events are deleted because the application fee becomes non-refundable. There's also new late payment fee for payment 30 days or more past due of 10% of total due. Not intended to increase revenue, but encourage timely payment of fees due. There's currently no penalty for late payments. Yeah. So the Metzger Park changes mirror the Hagg Lake, Scoggins Valley Park changes. Their previous cancellation policy was 15 days or more at 25% of the rental fee. It changes to advance notice 30 days or more, 25% of rental fee. The previous cancellation fee, 14 days or less, becomes 8 to 29 days, 50% of rental fee. They're also adding a new cancellation fee, advance notice 7 days or less, which is 100% of the rental fee. And they're also changing their staff cost per hour from $50 to $60. Culture, education, recreation, slide 4, facilities division. This is an entirely new section in the fee schedule this year. 18 proposed new fees to offset some of the costs associated with currently uncompensated services. So the first fee is Washington County conference use fee, $30 for general conference room use across the county managed by facilities. This is an external user fee that offsets expenses for room arrangement, cleaning, and trash disposal, damage repair.
I'm trying to think about who that might be. So I'm thinking about, for example, our civic leaders training. Would that be one of those?
I think if they're renting the room there, I think yes.
I've got a little more detail for facilities. Facilities processes requests for conference room spaces from external requesters without a county sponsor. This conference room
without a county sponsor.
Okay. Yep.
Yes, that's okay.
So they're truly just sort of renting the use of a conference room.
But I have a question. if someone is new to us, so their first time, the permit of entry fee, if they're coming to us for the first time to rent a conference room, does that mean they have to do the entry fee and the conference room fee?
No, I don't think so. I think that the permit of entry fee is a little different. So the permit of entry fee, the detail is real estate and planning staff process requests for access to county property for a variety of reasons. For external requesters who will not be providing a service at no charge to the county, a fee will be collected to offset staff time expense used to engage with the requester, verify insurance, and return approved form.
Chair Harrington, like an example of this is we've had contractors want to like put equipment on like a piece of property. And so we would do a permit of entry for that to make sure that they have properly, they're insured.
Yeah. Yeah. Staging areas
Yes.
of property that we have. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, no, permit of entry. The example Courtney gave is $100.
For the staff time
Yes,
to
not a
process it.
Okay.
Like I'll often
You
look
write
at it.
up the backside of Mason Hill, there's a piece of property that county owns. There's materials or trucks stored there. That's an example. Thank you, Kate.
Mhm.
Third new proposed fee there is a state courts attorney access request fee for attorneys coordinating with state courts for access to the courthouse justice services building. That offsets facilities cost of an access card and the staff time involved in processing the request, distributing the access card, and documenting access in a software program. So the rest of the proposed new facilities division fees are grounds use fees for processing requests by external groups for use of county property. So the explanation for this is facility staff coordinate with outside agencies and organizations to allow access to county grounds, both lawn and parking lots, to hold a variety of community events. Example would be like a farmer's market. No fees for the cost of staff time or use of utilities have previously been collected. Fees would offset utility expenses and staff resources to prepare the site and restore event sites. They're not full cost recovery. The fees themselves are based on the event size, the quantity of days, and whether they use utilities and whether they're a private or public event. So it starts with a permit application, which runs from $20 to $55, plus an additional fee based on the size and length of event, which runs from $175 to $1,000, and plus utility service fee if requested of $45 a day for electrical, $35 for water.
Thank you.
Right, on to public safety and justice. Sheriff's office has 78 fees. They're changing 2, eliminating 1. Pass-through deposit for real property foreclosure and sale increases $15. Prisoner transport fee increases from $1.15 a mile to $1.23 a mile. The inmate medical office visit is deleted. They're no longer charging that fee. District attorney is changing 2 of 10 fees, both of them increasing by 2.8%. The both digital forensic lab machine time per hour, no examiner interaction, and digital forensics lab machine time per hour with examiner interaction increased. And then juvenile conciliation has no changes for their fees. Public safety and justice, slide 2, community corrections has 8 fees, no changes. They're adding 1 new fee with a compact fee for $50. The state allows a charge with the client when they are moving their supervision out of Washington County. Justice Court has 29 fees, 9 are increasing to achieve full cost recovery. There's 1 new fee. Most of these fees haven't changed in 2 years. The payment plans haven't changed for 10 years. So 5 diversion fees increase, seatbelt program fee increases, collection fee, MIP diversion program fee increases, payment plans first increase in 10 years. And there's a new fee for vehicle compliance deferred adjudication, which represents an expansion of existing deferred adjudication program to add a new ticket type. No changes for law library.
That's one of my budget.
Right, Chris, thank you for the rundown. No,
Okay, so if we have other questions, we can certainly include those in our budget document as well. Right?
very good.
Are there any other board questions for today's meeting?
No, but I appreciate the summary.
Yeah,
I
I
have
think
one.
you've done a really good job of summarizing all these.
Sorry, I've got my leg,
No.
so I'm gonna walk around, or otherwise I'm gonna die.
Do that.
So how much money did we raise by the new fees?
As far as the total dollar amount,
Well, the total dollar amount of all fees, according to your opening paragraph, there was $45 million.
right?
So what was the last one?
Yeah, I'll get those numbers to you.
Okay. $45 million was surprising to me. That doesn't all go to general fund though, right? All goes
Oh,
to-
yeah, it does not. And when, yeah, I would ask when staff respond to that question, we separate it out by funds. Because for example, I'll just lift up West Side Commons, is very in a different space, LUT, we brought up, I believe, food restaurant that was brought up, parks fees. So I think looking at this by the different funds is incredibly important. And even when we look in the general fund, there are still a variety of fees that we have. We have certain fees that we are capped at, such as I will just share passports. We are capped at only charging $35 per passport. And I would encourage maybe that be on the federal agenda for next year of increasing that fee. So some we don't have the option of. So there's a whole variety of different fees that we have. So we'll try to capture it so it also gets to your answer and
Just the
Yep.
numbers surprised me.
As in big, small, or what?
Big $45 million. That was just big to me. When I first read it, I thought that was the fee increase. I'm going, wow. No, that's total fees.
yeah, I would also, and just for members of the public, just referring to your work session packet, the table does outline, I think, a good summary of fees with the description, last year's adopted fee, this year, the change both by dollar and percentage, because that can, it looks differently, sometimes be dependent on the amount of fee. Comparison to the two metro counties and then justification notes. So for me, I always find in this documentation, the justification and the notes the most helpful when I'm reviewing it.
What may be very helpful for all of us as we go into the multiple days of budget meetings is if you can take the fee and schedule document, the staff assistants may need to help with this rather than the way it is in the current PDF, and print those all on 11 by 17 with all the columns that you've summarized here, and provide us each with a hard written copy of that as we go into the budget committee meetings. So as we have questions from department to department, we have that information readily available. I mean, we have it at our fingertips already because it's in our packet, but that way we can tag pages or whatever to go back with regard to questions. The other thing that will help, I think this would be a good kickoff for just a summary when you start the first budget committee meeting, or just follow up as an email today, for today's work session is for each department, for each of the budget pages that we have got resources, which of the line items under there do we see fee revenue coming into? Will be just a good reminder for all of us today.
You know, I'd also like to say thank you for the presentation and just a reminder to us where we were 6 years ago when we looked at our fees and the huge gap we had between cost of providing service and what our fees were, and especially in LUT. So, but I think we've really worked for a long period of time to close that gap, and we're getting closer. So, and I understand it's hard to look at those numbers, but at the same time, we have to have fees that cover what our costs are to provide the services. Otherwise, we'll never get out of the hole. So.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate this overview today. Very helpful. Okay, unless anyone has any last items for today? No, nothing late breaking. Okay, we're hereby adjourned. Thank you.